like share and subscribe if you dare to step into the swamp where secrets don't stay buried for long. Tonight, we dive into one of Louisiana's darkest mysteries, the case they call the Swamp Murders. It started on a sticky August morning in 2008. The air in Jefferson Davis Parish was so thick with humidity it felt like it could drown you. The town of Jennings, a quiet community built on small churches and crawfish boils, woke to a nightmare. At 6:42 a.m., a fisherman named Curtis Daigle radioed the local sheriff's office. His voice trembled. He'd seen something tangled in the reeds of the Boudreaux Canal, something that looked human. Deputy Lena Guidry arrived first. The young officer had been on the job less than a year, but the sight that morning would haunt her forever. Floating in the murky water was the body of a woman, her hair matted with swamp debris, her skin pale beneath the rising sun. No ID, no phone, no shoes. Just a faded tattoo of a butterfly on her shoulder. When Sheriff Ricky Edwards reached the scene, he recognized the tattoo instantly. "That's Loretta," he muttered under his breath. Loretta Chison Lewis, a 28-year-old local woman who'd been missing for 2 weeks. Jennings was used to gossip, but not murder, and certainly not like this. As investigators pulled Loretta's body from the bayou, an eerie silence hung over the swamp. The coroner's early findings were grim. There were signs of strangulation and drug traces in her system. But what disturbed the most was the lack of struggle. No defensive wounds, no signs of a fight. It was as if Loretta had known her killer and trusted them. Within hours, the streets buzzed with whispers. Some said Loretta had been mixed up with the wrong crowd, drugs, prostitution, small-time hustlers. Others pointed fingers at local law enforcement, claiming they'd been looking the other way for years. In Jefferson Davis Parish, secrets flowed thicker than the bayou mud. Detective Paul Matthews took the lead on the case. A calm, methodical man with 20 years of experience. He'd seen his share tragedy, but nothing like what was about to unfold. He began tracing Loretta's last movements. A night at the Tiger Bar, a fight with a boyfriend named Frankie, and then nothing. No camera footage. No phone calls. Just silence. Then came the second body. 2 months later, another woman, Ernestine Patterson, was found in a canal on the outskirts of town. Same pattern. Drug use, strangulation, dumped in water. Jennings went from whispers to panic. And when a third body surfaced the following spring, the town crossed from fear into pure hysteria. The press dubbed it the Jennings 8. 8 women over 4 years, all from the same small community, all living on the margins of society, all vanishing and resurfacing in the same swampy backwaters. But this wasn't just another serial killer story. There was something darker here, something that didn't fit. Detective Matthews found a disturbing connection. All 8 women knew each other. They'd grown up together, shared boyfriends, shared dealers, even shared the same jail cells on petty charges. Some had even dated the same men connected to local law enforcement. And the more Matthews dug, the more resistance he faced. Case files went missing. Evidence mysteriously disappeared from storage. Witnesses stopped talking, some skipping town overnight. Rumors spread that someone high up was covering for the killer. Lena Guidry, the young deputy who found Loretta's body, became obsessed. Off duty, she drove the swamp roads at night, flashlight in hand, retracing the paths the victims might have taken. Her colleagues called her reckless. But Lena couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was hiding in plain sight. One night, she stopped at the Tiger Bar, the same place Loretta was last seen. The bartender froze when Lena flashed her badge. "You're still digging into that?" he asked. "You don't want to end up like them girls." Lena pressed. "What do you mean by that?" The bartender leaned closer. "You think this is about some random killer? You're asking the wrong people, deputy. Try looking in your own department." It was a bombshell, and it didn't take long before Lena realized she was being followed. Unmarked cars outside her apartment. Strange calls where no one spoke. Even her reports began to vanish from the sheriff's database. Meanwhile, Matthew's team received an anonymous envelope. Inside were photographs, grainy black and white shots of women standing near a pickup truck, headlights glaring. In one of the photos, Loretta was clearly visible, laughing with a man whose face was turned away. The license plate was half covered in mud, but one detail stood out: a Jefferson Davis Parish Sheriff's Office bumper sticker. The next morning, Matthews took the photos to Sheriff Edwards. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "You know what you're suggesting here, Paul," he said quietly, "and it's going to tear this town apart." But the detective didn't care. "We've already lost 8 women," he said. "If one of our own is involved, I'd rather tear this town apart than let him walk free." That same week, a local woman named Danielle French came forward, terrified. She claimed she'd seen 2 of the victims, Loretta and Ernestine, getting into a police cruiser late at night weeks before they disappeared. But before investigators could take her full statement, Danielle vanished too. Now there were 9 names. And yet, every time Matthews tried to connect the dots, someone erased the lines. His phone was tapped, his house broken into. Still, he pushed on. He'd seen corruption before, but this was different. This was wrought from the inside out. Then, during a late-night search through the evidence warehouse, he found something odd: a box mislabeled Boudreaux flood reports. Inside were VHS tapes, security footage from the parish impound lot. The date on the first tape matched the night Loretta disappeared. Matthews took it home, locked his doors, and pressed play. For several minutes, the footage showed only static. Then, faintly, headlights appeared. A police cruiser pulled into view. A man stepped out, tall, wearing a sheriff's jacket. He opened the back door and helped a woman out. Her hands were bound. It was Loretta. The man's face turned toward the camera, and though grainy, unmistakable. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a drifter or a junkie. It was someone Matthews knew. Someone who'd been at every crime scene. Someone who'd shaken his hand and offered condolences to the victims' families. Sheriff Ricky Edwards. The detective's breath caught in his throat. His mind raced. Could it be real? Or was it planted to set him up? But then the tape jumped again. The next frame showed the same car, leaving the impound yard, alone. Matthews knew what he had to do. He needed proof more than a single tape, because in Jefferson Davis Parish, truth didn't just get buried. It drowned. That night, he called Lena Guidry to meet him in secret. But when she didn't answer, a chill ran through him. He tried again, straight to voicemail. By dawn, Lena's cruiser was found abandoned at the edge of the swamp, the door still open, the radio still humming static. And beside it, in the mud, was a single footprint, the same boot print Matthews had seen in those photos. He stared at it for a long time, heart pounding, the weight of the bayou pressing in. Whatever was happening in Jefferson Davis Parish, it wasn't over, because when they opened the trunk of Lena's cruiser, what they found changed everything. Before we go deeper into the swamp, make sure you're subscribed, because what you're about to hear was never meant to surface. The trunk of Lena Guidry's cruiser was slick with swamp water. Under a tarp sat an evidence box. Inside, a duplicate VHS tape and a note, smear but legible. They know. Don't trust anyone inside. Detective Matthews stood in the rain, staring at the paper. Lena had been warning him. Whatever she'd found had cost her life. He took the tape to Claire Fontenot, the journalist who'd been digging into the Jennings murders for years. They met at a diner off Highway 26, the kind of place where coffee burned and secrets festered. Claire leaned forward. "If that tape's real, you're talking about blowing up half the parish." Matthews slid it across the table. "Then let's light the fuse." They played it in her office that night. The footage was grainy, filmed from the parish impound yard. A cruiser pulled in. Sheriff Edwards stepped out, opening the back door to help a woman out, hands bound. "Loretta," Claire whispered. "That's him." But in the corner stood another figure, a second man with a flashlight. The lens caught the glint of a badge. "There's someone else," she said. "Someone watching." The next morning, Matthews tried reporting to state police in Lake Charles. His badge didn't work. His files were locked. His case had been reassigned to Harold Bro, Edwards' loyal investigator. By evening, Sheriff Edwards announced Lena's suicide. Found near the swamp. Case closed. Matthews knew it was a lie. He stormed into Claire's office. "They killed her." She found something bigger. Claire pointed to her wall of files. Every victim had contact with the same two deputies, Wayne Carver and another we can't name. Carver was Edward's shadow. They drove out to an old training yard, a cluster of rusting trailers deep in the marsh. The smell of decay hit them instantly. Inside one trailer, a box labeled JD. 001 held a list of women, more than 8, 12, maybe more. Some had never even been reported missing. Claire whispered, they weren't investigating murders. They were cataloging them. An old computer hummed to life. Scanned photos filled the screen. Victims' mugshots, all taken in the sheriff's basement. Matthew's stomach twisted. They filmed them before they died. They copied what they could and left before dawn. But as they reached the main road, headlights appeared behind them. Blinding, fast, relentless. Don't look back, Matthew said. The SUV rammed them twice, sending their car spinning into the ditch. Glass shattered, mud sprayed. The pursuers stepped out, 2 men with flashlights. One was unmistakable, Sergeant Wayne Carver. They waited in silence until the men left, then escaped into the swamp. Soaked and shaken, they hid in an old shack until sunrise. Claire's voice trembled. If we go public, we're dead. Matthew stared into the mist. If we don't, they win. That night, they arranged to meet a federal contact at a Lafayette motel. Matthews left briefly for gas. When he returned, the door was open. Claire was gone. Her phone was cracked on the nightstand, a single message glowing. Stop digging. She's gone. He sank into a chair, staring at the security camera blinking in the hallway. Then he noticed something taped to the window, a photo of Claire outside her car, taken hours earlier. Across it, written in red marker, "You're next, Paul." Matthews barely slept. Every sound made him flinch. By dawn, he packed the flash drive, the letter, and the VHS tapes. He had one plan left: expose them all. Just as he started his car, a text appeared from an unknown number. Check your backyard. He stepped out cautiously. Fog hung low. His flashlight beam caught something half buried by the fence, a small muddy box. Inside, sealed in plastic, was another tape labeled J.D. Parish, 2004. The date froze him. That was before the first known murder. He played it alone. Static filled the room. Then a shaky shot of 2 men dragging a woman through swamp grass. Sheriff Edwards was younger. So was Carver. And behind the camera, someone laughed, giving them directions. The frame shifted. The man holding the camera turned toward the light. Matthews froze. It was him, his younger self. He dropped the remote, stumbling back, his heart pounding. He had no memory of that night. None. But the face on the screen didn't lie. He wasn't just chasing the killer. Before we close this case, hit that subscribe button. Because once you hear what really happened in Jefferson Davis Parish, you'll never forget it. Detective Paul Matthews sat in the dark, frozen before the flickering TV screen. His reflection stared back at him from the static, pale, trembling, lost. On the tape, his younger self was laughing, walking through the swamp, his boots sinking into the same mud where 9 women would later be found. It didn't make sense. He'd only joined the department in 2005. The tape was dated 2004. He wasn't there. He couldn't have been there. But there he was, clear as daylight, beside Sheriff Edwards and Wayne Carver, dragging a woman toward the water. Matthews grabbed the cassette, his hands shaking. There had to be another explanation. A frame-up, a deep fake, but this wasn't digital. It was real analog tape. Whoever made it knew what they were doing. Someone wanted him to believe he'd been part of this long before he even arrived. He dialed Claire's number again, but it went straight to voicemail. Then he called every contact he had left, state police, the FBI, even old bureau friends. But no one picked up. The silence was louder than any denial. He poured himself a drink, the glass clinking against the bottle. His eyes drifted toward the window. Headlights flashed briefly outside, then disappeared. He didn't move. He just whispered to himself, "They're already here." By morning, Matthews was gone. The neighbors said they'd heard an engine start around 3:15 a.m. His front door was left open. His badge sat on the kitchen table beside a note that simply read, checked the canal. That afternoon, Sheriff Edwards held a press conference. He stood before the cameras, voice calm, eyes steady. Detective Paul Matthews, he announced, is now considered a person of interest in the ongoing investigation into the Jefferson Davis murders. Evidence suggests he may have been involved in the disappearance of multiple women. Reporters gasped. Cameras clicked. And in that single moment, the hunter became the hunted. But not everyone believed the story. Deputy Arlene Landry, a quiet officer who'd worked in evidence control, had known Matthews for years. He wasn't perfect, no cop was, but she didn't buy it. Something about the sheriff's statement felt rehearsed, too neat. That night, after everyone had left the office, she snuck into the evidence room. She pulled up the inventory list for JD-001, the same file Matthews and Claire had found in the old trailer, but the file was gone, deleted from the server. No trace. Only one note remained. Transfer to archive, authorized by S. Edwards. Arlene closed the computer, heart pounding. She knew then this wasn't just about corruption. This was a cover-up of history itself. 2 days later, a call came into the parish dispatcher. A fisherman had found a car half-submerged near Boudreaux Canal, headlights still faintly glowing beneath the murky water. The plates matched Paul Matthews. When the dive team pulled the vehicle out, the windshield was cracked, the doors locked from the inside. Inside the trunk, they found two things: the VHS tape labeled J.D. Parish, 2004, and a plastic bag containing several old sheriff's badges. But Matthews' body wasn't inside. The current theory? He'd driven himself into the canal and been swept away by the current. Officially, the case ended there. Unofficially, it was just beginning. Weeks passed. The story hit national headlines. Louisiana detective exposed as serial killer. The sheriff's department played the part of the grieving, betrayed agency. Sheriff Edwards gave interviews about trust and healing. But deep down, people in Jennings knew something was off. Locals said they saw unmarked trucks near the canal at night. Some said they heard screams echoing through the marshes. And others swore they saw Matthews, alive, standing near the old training yard, staring into the fog. Then came the letter. It arrived at the Jennings Daily Record newsroom in an unmarked envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a note in familiar handwriting. For Claire, if I don't make it, tell them the swamp remembers. The file on the drive contained a series of recordings, audio logs, all dated after Matthews' supposed death. The voice was unmistakable. Calm, controlled, determined. If you're hearing this, Matthews said, then they've made me the villain. But you need to know, this goes back further than me, further than Edwards. The first body wasn't in 2005. It was 1998. And the victims, they were informants, women who'd seen too much. They tried to expose a pipeline, drugs, trafficking, cash laundering, all buried under parish patrol routes. The sheriff didn't work alone. The FBI had eyes here. And so did someone in Baton Rouge. They used the swamp to clean house. In the next recording, his voice shook. Lena figured out first. She found the second set of tapes. Real tapes, filmed for blackmail. That's why they killed her. I don't know who sent me the 2004 tape. Maybe to make me doubt myself. Maybe to silence me before I got close. But I remember something now. Something I buried. A pause. Then, I was there not as a deputy. Before I joined the force, I did private security for Edwards. He said it was a training exercise, tracking a missing girl. But when we got there, she was already dead. They made me film it. Said it was for evidence. I thought I'd imagined it all. Maybe I wanted to. But the swamp doesn't forget. It just waits. The final recording ended with the sound of water sloshing, footsteps, and a whisper. They're here. After that, silence. Federal agents raided the Jefferson Davis Parish Sheriff's office 3 weeks later. Sheriff Edwards and Sergeant Carver were arrested on charges of obstruction, destruction of evidence, and conspiracy. But before they could stand trial, Edwards was found dead in his holding cell, ruled an apparent suicide. Carver refused to speak. When asked about Matthews, he smiled and said, "Some ghosts don't need justice. They just need quiet." The FBI never confirmed how many victims there truly were. Some reports claimed 12, others said 16. But locals still talk about the nights when the swamp goes silent, when the frogs stop croaking and the wind stills. That's when, they say, you can hear footsteps along the canal road. Not heavy like a man's. Lighter, softer, as if a patrol still walks those marshes, searching for the truth that was drowned long ago. And sometimes near the water's edge, people claim to see a figure in a deputy's jacket, face hidden by the mist, staring down at the reflection of a man who looks just like Paul Matthews. No one knows if he's dead or alive, but one thing is certain. In Jefferson Davis Parish, secrets don't stay buried. They rise one body at a time. If you thought the swamp murders was over, think again, because just 3 months later, another body surfaced. Same swamp, same pattern, same tattoo. They thought the killer was gone. But the swamp never lets go. If you think the story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe. You won't believe what's coming next.